Awesome story right there, Elisa. I want to ask you, though, we've been talking a lot about a Christmas tree shortage, right? And we've covered the heat and the fires that we saw in the Midwest. Has that created a demand for North Carolina Frasier firs, or how are we affected by this?
So I was curious about that because we're not the only region, right, with Christmas trees,
Right.
but we didn't have the wildfires like they did up in like Oregon, places like that. Basically, the regions are pretty local, right? So North Carolina supplying the Southeast, we weren't really getting our trees from Oregon anyway, if that makes sense, right? But there was always a shortage, but things like that, like the wildfires that didn't make it any better. And I don't, like, listen to this, like, help me, like, listen, process this with me.
Okay.
Because I was like blown.
Okay.
So it takes 10 years for this tree to grow, right? We had a surplus because there was a recession, right? And people weren't buying the trees. You needed to have a 10-year crystal ball to say 10 years from now we're going to have a pandemic and people are going to want more trees. Hello?
So they weren't able to predict that, right?
Oh, who could have predicted that?
Okay, so we're talking...
That's where the shortage is coming
Okay,
from.
but we're talking about 10 years to make a tree, but also you mentioned something in your story that I thought was fascinating. Scientists trying to manufacture a tree. Explain that.
Dude, I was like, what?
Right.
They're doing, and they're doing it right in North Carolina. It's super cool. So there are Christmas tree geneticists, like people who their PhD, their expertise is in the genetics of a Christmas tree.
Okay.
Right? So what they're trying to do is, because like they mentioned, climate change is putting it at risk because it doesn't like the extremes, right? The extreme drought and the extreme rain. Yes. So what they're trying to do is take the different breeds of trees and kind of breed them to see like if this type of new breed could be a little bit more resilient to conditions like that.
So a super tree.
And
Super Christmas tree is what you're saying.
And they have a lab in North Carolina doing that. I want to go back.
That's absolutely fascinating. I do want to say, though, they are doing okay in terms of our Frasier firs. When you were out there, it's still a very resilient breed of tree, right?
Yeah, so he was saying that there's an overall shortage because of the planting issues, right? But they had a good season, they had a good dry and cool kind of harvest season for them. So overall the season was okay, but there is that blanket shortage because we did lose Christmas tree farmers 10 years ago in the recession, and it takes 10 years for your tree to grow now.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I do want to ask one more, since we have the time to do it. You know, we've been talking a lot about record-breaking temperatures, right? It's nice for people to go out there because they like to put on the T-shirt and enjoy the warm weather. But when we talk about, you know, Boone, Jefferson, these places where these Frasier firs grow, that's the downside. They're not getting the rain they need, and they don't like the temperatures, right?
Right. I mean, and even think about it too. We're in December. Ski resorts want to open up.
Right.
It hasn't really snowed much up there yet, right? So that's also something to keep in mind. But again, these swings are just very stressful on the tree, and but solutions coming out of a lab in North Carolina. And I invited myself to go and check out what they're doing. I'll be back.
Well, I look forward to that report. And you know what? That is the amazing thing about science and technology, that we're engineering a way to keep these trees out there. A super tree in our future.
Cool, right?
Elisa, great work as always.
Thank you.
But we have more stuff coming up. Spending money